Well, we have some huge changes coming to Warhammer the Old World, and they are relating to magic and the way that combat is going to work. There's been an article published today, so we're going to have a quick look at it and talk about it. There's some little, let's call them Easter eggs. They're not really Easter eggs, so let's just jump in. So the article reads like this: The Old World Development Diary. The more things change, the more they stay the same. But there's actually more changes in here than one might actually expect. So here they talk about that they're doing a reimagining, and they actually say they wanted to create a modern game, which, if I'm honest, is pretty much what I wanted. I think some of the mechanics were probably a little bit outdated, so it makes sense to modernize them. And they've been playing lots of games, they've been doing lots of playtesting, and you can see some of the images. They're absolutely looking beautiful, very old school. I mean, this is nostalgia in a picture to me. You have all the siege weapons, you've got everybody you can imagine. And if these are 25mm bases instead of 20mm, which they probably are, you know what? They look pretty damn nice. So here it talks about how they were getting together and learning the game, well, not learning the game, but developing the game, and they talk about some of the tweaks. And there's two main tweaks, and the first one is drawing battle lines. And they talk about how the rules encourage players to field units of varying size based on their type and role. And perhaps most importantly, the formations units adopt, how wide and deep they are just as significant as where they are deployed and how quickly they advance. By the way, I'm seeing the little tower. That tower, I can't remember exactly what it is. It's very expensive. If they bring that back, I will be so excited. But what I think I can see here is there are some units that look not like 5 wide or 4 wide. Unless my eyes deceive, I think these elves here are 6 wide. And then these ones here are probably 10 wide. So it looks like the Horde formation might be back. I'm a little bit disappointed about that, but it looks like there's going to be more freedom, and hopefully they're actually realizing that they need to balance that. But it looks like we're not going to have blocks of 5 and that's it. Nor does it look like they want blocks of 10, even though there are some models that are wider. They don't really tell us any rules about that, if I'm honest, but they go say the rules encourage units with wide frontages, but the ideal number of models per rank is decided by the player, not enforced by the rules. Well, they do actually say rules encourage units to be with wide frontages, but I don't really want that, but we'll see what it is. I'm not going to stress too much. To do this, we've ensured that there's as many models as possible can fight in combat, giving even those models that are within the fighting rank but not in base contact with the enemy the opportunity to bring their weapon to bear. Now that is huge. So like when I was playing, you basically always had to work out who was in base contact with whom. It sounds like they're literally just going to ditch that. My assumption is that either the first row will just all get to fight, or the first and the second row will get to fight. I think that might have existed in early editions, maybe like 5th or 4th or something like that. But when I was playing, that wasn't a thing. I'll be very curious what the actual rule is there, because I don't really want like, 20-man wide units. If that's really strong, then that wouldn't make any sense. I mean, maybe it does make sense. Maybe that's more realistic than blocks of 5. I don't really want to comment too much, but on gameplay, I like the idea of blocks of 5 personally, but, we'll see. And then they say, combined with the freedom to create and arm characters as you wish, players will have a lot of strategic options when building their units and writing their lists. Fair enough. I like this one. I really hope we don't just see all 10 wide. That's not really what I want, but we'll have to wait and see how we actually get the rules. The next one is breaking the enemy. I actually said it was 2 main things. It's actually 3. I can't count. It is what it is. The next one is breaking the enemy. Now, I'll just cut this one a little bit short because it's not that long. Basically, it sounds like there's going to be something that when you lose, you're not just immediately going to break and flee. There's going to be some kind of like falling back system. And they say there's going to be like some kind of tactic there where you can maybe lay traps, maybe fall back and then attack on a certain front, something like that. Sounds really cool. And again, another picture of this tower, which is very expensive and out of production to my knowledge, and the old castle CG thing, which my friend had, and I don't know what happened to, but it was very cool to have that. That's a nice little rule. Potentially we'll have to wait and see. And you can see an Empire army here versus Orcs and Goblins. And the frontages, I have no idea how many this wide is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That looks like they're 8 wide, so it doesn't look like it's going to be 5 or 10. It looks like you can effectively just pick and choose, and there's going to be some kind of strategy there. And then I think, are these guys 7 wide? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so there is really some like mixed up unit sizes, which is interesting in itself. And then the next one is the power of magic. And again, I won't necessarily go through everything here, but the long story short is that magic is not going to have a magic phase anymore. It's just going to be when the time is right. And they say in doing so, we've ensured that every spell available to a wizard can have a significant impact on the battle if cast in the right place and at the right time. Situations where a single spell can decide the outcome of a battle are rare. Now, this used to happen a little bit in fantasy back in the day, Basically, you get that one spell off at the right time, you can pretty much win the game. And if you didn't, well, you didn't. And if you miscast, well, you're dead. So they've sort of moved away from that focus, and now they're gonna like not have it so you're keeping track of your dice pools or the hands or anything like that, or your cards. They're effectively trying to make it so it's more about positioning, which I mean probably indicates that you can take them out as well, and there'll be a more like active play that they will have, rather than sort of sit at the back and just cast spells in the magic phase. You're now going to be a little bit more active. Overall, I think these changes could very much be positive. Some of them might be a little bit scuffed, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, you know, GW's rules these days, mostly okay. And they say that they're excited about these game mechanics and more besides. Combined with the classic elements of the beloved game, give players both old and new plenty to consider when they're planning their enemies and mastering their tactics. It's an exciting time, and we're looking forward to seeing the seaweed ranks of fantasy armies marching across the gaming tables once more. Yeah, like overall, they could have huge impact on the game. They don't really tell us exactly how it's going to work. Obviously, we don't have the rules, but it sounds like we're going to have different size units, and that's going to be like a choice, probably like a strategic choice. I like that. If you can basically have anywhere from 5 to 10 and it all makes sense, and you know, you have to strategically think about it at the start of the game, I think that could be positive. Maybe we're going to have less breaking. Maybe the number of ranks you have is going to be less important, but it's a little bit worrying that maybe everybody at the front could attack, but maybe that's a good thing, and you don't have to measure the base to base. I think I like that element of it. But as I said, I don't want 20-man wide units. That might look a bit daft. The old conga line, but in a different way. And then the breaking the enemy thing, yeah, that sounds good. Honestly, like fleeing the battle, just losing combat and running off the game or running off the board could really ruin a game. So this sort of sounds like it's an intermediary step, which I think could be good. And the magic being everywhere and not just like at one specific phase, that could add some really like new tactics to where your wizards are, your mages are on the table. Overall, like potentially positive. We need to see it in action. And I have to say, it sounds like this game is ramping to a release. Like, at this point, they're showing us more and more about what we're actually going to get. I still think it's coming out at the end of this year. I still think it's going to be winter, just because of the way they're building this up. Can't imagine it being next year now. That seems like too far off. So if it comes out in October, November, yeah, I think it might make sense. They don't actually tell us when we're going to get the next thing, but okay, fair enough. All these old images, I've got to say, they're absolutely beautiful, aren't they? Truly, truly beautiful imagery. Very nostalgic, but very, very incredible looking. It almost looks like the early 2000s or the late 90s to me, just in the pictures, even though you can bet your bottom dollar that these were actually taken recently, because there's new bases on there, new base sides and all that kind of stuff. It looks great. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure you will. And yeah, some exciting stuff to come, I think. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.